Is the M60 better than the Lewis, or is the Lewis better than the M60? You might be surprised to learn that they're actually very close to each other in terms of performance and the ability to pump out damage in games. At the front of this video, the front half, for a little bit more than half, you're going to have full gameplay examples. No theory crafting here. Everything that I'm talking about is from an actual game that I played against actual real people, not just sitting in a practice range giving you ideas that might work, giving you actual real examples that do work and how things actually feel in the game itself. And then in the back half of this video, if you're anything like me, you're going to have a ton of different detail breakdowns. This will be outside of actual games, doing controlled environment tests, like how much does it actually take to eliminate a light, a medium, and a heavy with headshots, body shots? How many shots does it take to eliminate goo? How many shots does it take to eliminate a mesh shield? All these tests are done best in a controlled environment, so I've done those there to help add some additional detail into how these weapons are working overall within the games. Let's talk about the tangible differences between the weapons as they're designed. Between the Lewis and the M60, the damage goes to the Lewis by a slight margin. What you'll see towards the end of this video is that damage difference really only matters for mediums and heavies. They are identical when it comes to eliminating lights. For fire rate, the Lewis is much slower in terms of its ability to put out rounds per second, whereas the M60 is a lot faster in how many rounds it can chew out overall. The Lewis has more range than the M60, and what this actually means is the damage will be consistent farther out with the Lewis than it will be for the M60. The fall off range is further out for the Lewis than the M60. That being said, overall, I feel the M60's ability to be consistent at range is better than the Lewis. In terms of accuracy, the Lewis is listed as significantly better than the M60, but when we look at the recoil pattern later, I think you will realize that that might not be holistically true. And they're actually really close in terms of their accuracy when you look at that recoil pattern overall. The magazine size is 47 for the Lewis versus 70 for the M60. And they both have a 3.5 second reload speed. Again, all of this will be shown towards the back end of the video. With that out of the way, we can talk about the actual scenarios that I experienced when using both of these weapons. Both weapons are fully capable of handling an entire squad, which makes them both powerhouse options for the heavy class. The M60 gives you a little bit more breathing room in terms of missing shots and still being able to have bullets left over to finish up squad wipes, whereas the Lewis, you have to be a bit more precise in making sure that you are hitting those rounds consistently, bullet over bullet. In the short to mid-range engagements, they are nearly identical in their ability to delete targets and beam players down. Once you get more towards long range though, I find the M60 is a little bit easier to control over a longer period of time of holding the trigger down, which means that I'm capable of hitting more shots more consistently to targets at range with the M60 than I am the Lewis. In terms of their ability to handle defenses, the Lewis edges out the M60. The Lewis can delete mesh shields, dome shields, and goo walls a bit quicker than the M60 can, though in comparison, the M60 will have more rounds left over to be effective to the enemies behind those defenses than the Lewis will. The Lewis will have to exhaust a higher amount of the magazine to get those deleted, and will have less overall ability to deal with the enemies that are hiding behind those once it's gotten through the defenses. All in all, with all the games that I've played with Lewis, I still feel the M60 edges it out in almost every possible way. With the exception of in the longer range fights, the Lewis has less fall off and will perform a little bit better as long as you're consistently hitting your shots. The Lewis has about 10 more meters of fall off protection than the M60 does. The Lewis will not have any damage reduction from range until just after 35 meters, where for the M60, it is closer to 25 meters or so. And again, in the back of this video, and look at how substantial the fall off actually is for both of the weapons. So what does this all tangibly mean? Ultimately, it's going to come down to user preference and the type of players that you have in your lobby. If it is a light heavy lobby, my recommendation is to go with the M60 because there is no difference between the Lewis and the M60 in terms of their ability to delete and eliminate light players. If you have a lobby with a lot more heavies in it, it's better to go with the Lewis because of the ability to get through those defenses a little bit faster and its higher amount of damage to those targets at a further distance. You can play a bit more safe with the Lewis against heavy players and still apply tons of damage because the fall off is pretty far. That said, as with everything, all of this boils down to, can you hit your shots consistently with the weapon that you chose? Because there is no benefit to choosing a weapon that has a further fall off range if at range range, you're missing half of your shots because the damage output then in that point is just a total wash from using a weapon that might be a little bit less damage at range, but then you're hitting 75 to 100% of the shots on target. So ultimately, it's going to be user preference, and my personal preference is the M60. My belief is an easier to control recoil, the ability to hit shots more consistently on target will over time lead to more eliminations simply because missed bullets are missed opportunities, and I miss a whole lot less with the M60 than I do with the Lewis. I've been having a ton of fun playing with the Lewis in the current World Tour Risk and Reward event, and it's been a fun change of pace to figure out how the weapon works overall, but I feel like they are so similar in terms of their stats and ability to handle squads and the ability to handle situations that it really just comes down to which one you prefer to run with. I've said a lot about how these weapons work, and now it's time to talk about the actual tangible details that supports everything that's been said. In this part of the video, we're going to go into a controlled set of experiments and take a look at how these weapons perform in a couple of different dimensions. Looking at how well they can eliminate targets, both with headshots and body shots in comparison to each other. Look at how well they perform at getting rid of goo or mesh shields and dome shields, the exact bullet counts for each of those, as well as their recoil patterns and how they compare in terms of your accuracy while using the weapon. For all of these tests, they are within the normal fall off ranges, so there is no fall off reduction. There will be differences outside of that range, but for the intent of this test to baseline and understand their damage output, we're within a few meters of the target to ensure that the maximum damage is applied. For lights, there is no difference in the amount of headshots it takes to eliminate them. It's 5 for both the Lewis and the M60. For body shots, it is a 1 bullet difference. It takes 7 Lewis shots and 8 M60 shots to eliminate light targets. For mediums, the difference is 1 bullet. It takes 8 headshots with the Lewis and 9 headshots with the M60 to fully eliminate a medium. For body shots, it takes 12 Lewis rounds and 13 M60 rounds to fully eliminate a medium. Again, just 1 bullet difference. For heavies, it takes 11 headshots from the Lewis and 12 headshots from the M60. And then for body shots, it takes 16 Lewis rounds versus the M60's 18 to fully eliminate a heavy. For deleting an individual piece of goo, it takes 11 Lewis rounds versus the M60's 12. For damage to structures using an identical block on Cis Horizon for a baseline, it takes 84 Lewis rounds, or essentially almost 2 full clips to delete a block. Whereas with the M60, while it takes tangibly more at 106 total rounds, it's only about a clip and a half. So once you do get through the block with the M60, you have considerably more rounds to play around with than you would with the Lewis itself. For mesh shields, it takes the Lewis 35 bullets versus the M60's 38. And for dome shields, it takes the Lewis 12 bullets versus the M60's 15. For the recoil patterns, you'll notice that the Lewis has a strong upfront kick, but is really straight and vertical up until about quarter of the way through the mag, and then you introduce a lot of horizontal left and right recoil, much more significant than you have with the M60. With the M60, you also have a big kick up front, but it has a little bit more wiggle to it in the beginning. As you continue to hold down that fire, it does have left and right horizontal recoil, but it is not as substantial as it is on the Lewis. This makes it a little bit easier to be more precise with the M60 over longer periods of time. For damage fall off, the Lewis will fall off around 35 meters. A little bit after that, like 36 to 37, it starts to fall off. Whereas the M60 falls off much shorter, around the 25-26 meter range. And that's it. That's everything you could possibly need to know about how these weapons operate in comparison to each other. And I hope that this helps you get a better idea for which weapon you want to choose for a given game or tournament type. As always, I appreciate y'all for taking the time to watch. It means the world to me. And that's it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.